All right, welcome everyone to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast. This is for December 12th through the 18th of 2016. I'm Athen, and this channel is about using the actual constellations in the sky, known as Sidereal Astrology. If you are new, be sure to check out the link down below because the signs are different. All right, so we're going to start off this reading looking at the collective energies for everyone this week. And then after this, you can click your sign down below in the description to go ahead and jump ahead to your particular horoscope. And of course, you can watch that for your sun sign, your moon sign, and your ascendant sign, just so you know. And sometimes it is good to watch all three of them because it does give you a more well-rounded picture about that. And there is also a link to the online chart calculator. So if you don't know your ascendant or moon sign, you can find out using that calculator. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look here. Collectively, we've got a full moon this week. It's going to be in Taurus. It's going to be on Tuesday. So this week is a culminating week. I think things are coming ahead. There's some awareness, some insight coming in. And collectively, it's involving the qualities of Taurus. So really good to be accessing our resourceful side. In fact, 6 months ago, we had the new moon in Taurus. And at that time, depending on what it was, maybe some new things about our inner resources, our sense of self-worth or self-reliance, and externally cultivating our values. Now, it's not so much the what. Do check your weekly to see which house this is, but it's the quality of resourcefulness. All right, it's the quality of enjoying the simple pleasures of life. And I think this is a great full moon to do that, to really be grateful for what we have, really be aware of what we have in our life, and maybe reflect or just come to some awareness about what it is we truly value and how we can continue to cultivate those values going into the coming weeks and months. So this is going to be a very interesting full moon in that it's forming a lot of aspects. As you can see here, it is forming a kite, which is the most important aspect with this. It is going to be opposing up to Saturn. This is involving that Sun-Saturn conjunction we had last week. So, as all full moons are, balance is really the name of the game, and especially when there's a planet on one side of the full moon. So the balance with this kite is going to be particularly with the responsible side of ourselves. We recently had that conjunction with the sun, which was starting and still is this week, starting this new beginning about patience and about accessing that responsible side of ourselves. And when it comes to the sun energy, about all the things we're passionate about, we're excited about, that willpower of ours, it does throttle back a bit so that it can be built. It can be long lasting. So this full moon, I think it's very good to have a balanced approach with responsibility. And I think particularly the responsibility of connecting to what really matters most in life. And maybe even doing the healing and the transformation and the inner work that's been so important with the sun transiting Scorpio and Fucus this past month. So this is the classic example of, yes, it's great to be connecting to Earth, which is Taurus, and everything that comes from Earth, which is the good meal, the relaxation, the hot bath, the sensual, the kinesthetic side to life. But at the same time, balancing that with the deeper side to life, what truly matters. And, all these material values, yes, they are great to a certain point, but of course, it's about connecting to what life is really about, connecting to what matters most in life. And I think finding that balance is going to be particularly helpful with this full moon. Now, it's a very supportive full moon because kites are a very supportive formation. You've got a grand trine here involving Jupiter and Mars. Okay, very nice there. And so this can be a bit of maybe motivation, again, to cultivate that resourceful side of ourselves. Maybe a bit of inspiration, which is Jupiter too. In this conjunction we had last week, and it's still somewhat in orb. So if you are feeling a bit inspired, if you are feeling a bit motivated on some level, use it. Because it is an easy aspect, and when times are easy, we could just sit back and rest on our laurels, but there is support. And any of those values, any of this awareness, whatever the area of life is that's coming ahead this week, maybe put some energy into that. Put some positive thinking into that. Open up to some possibilities with that Jupiter. So that's going to be the kite side of this. It's also going to be sextiling up to Uranus, so there is a bit of freedom with this, individuality. In fact, that's been Mars recently shifting into Aquarius anyways. The way we can be getting things done might be in different ways, innovative, progressive, maybe getting involved with the community or global affairs, things like that. Could be very good sources of energy. And I think just all in all, mixing things up in this full moon, thinking outside the box, seeing how things can be changed a bit so we can have a bit more freedom in our life. It's not a major aspect, but there's certainly an opening for that freedom there. And with freedom, of course, there is some healing. The full moon will be squaring up to Chiron. So although not a major planet, I think there is some healing going on with this full moon. Facing some wounds, accepting some wounds, doing again that inner transformation, especially with the sun and Ophiuchus, which is very much associated with that, doing the healing work, can be very supported there. All right, so that's the full moon. And all in all, it does make the week a sort of high point week, a cultivating week of a bit of momentum and awareness. Now, in terms of the aspects, not a whole lot of aspects going on this week. We do have the sun trining up to that Uranus and squaring Chiron on Monday. So Monday leading up to that Tuesday full moon, I think there is a bit of freedom, actually. I think it'll be great to be expressing ourselves in new and different ways, or just all in all being ourselves and focusing that willpower with, again, that grounded perspective, which is Saturn, but at the same time honoring what we're really about and honoring the importance of having freedom in our life. And as a result, yes, probably some healing taking place. Doing the work to do that healing could be very constructive as well. All right, and then as we get into about Friday, the sun's going to start to shift into Sagittarius. So there's definitely this transformation occurring with our collective focus and our collective self-expression. And so I think especially by the second half of the week, probably a bit more expansive. All right, it's been a very watery time. Like I said, it's been very internal. It's been more about that inner transformation, the inner healing and all that stuff. Facing those vulnerabilities and wounds and all that. But I think by the second half of the week, probably a bit more adventurous, free-spirited, maybe discussing philosophies, ideas, that kind of a thing. And that can be a great source of energy the second half as well. Now, the week does end with Mercury slowing down. He's going to go retrograde here on Monday. And I think particularly Saturday and Sunday, maybe taking a throttle back from the routine a bit. Maybe bringing some extra attention to the mind, to the communication. And this is, of course, a Mercury in Sagittarius. So we've already been sort of open-minded and thinking about things in terms of possibilities and potentials, which is great. But now it's time to rework this and rethink some of this. Maybe rethink some of these belief systems, some of these possibilities, our personal worldview. And again, this adventurous spirit. So there's definitely more of that because the sun's going into Sag, but there's something to reconsider here about this free-spirited energy. Okay, but that's mostly going into next week, which I'll talk more about. But I did just want to say, when it does come to that weekend, maybe slowing down the routine a bit, maybe pausing with anything that does involve correspondence, intellectual things, and communication. All right, so that's the week in a nutshell. Definitely the full moon is the most important astrological event, forming a lot of aspects. This kite, as it always is with full moons, about balance, balancing the deeper side of life with the enjoyments of life, the sensual life, and earth, and connecting to earth. And that's really when we do the best healing anyways. Healing is always best when we are rooted and grounded. And I think it's a great full moon to get rooted, get grounded, connect to those values, be aware of our values, be aware of what we have in our life, be grateful for it. And the moon is exalted in Taurus too, so it really supports that. And again, the kite is suggesting that there can be a bit of inspiration, there can be a bit of motivation, so utilizing it, and a bit of freedom, and some healing, of course. And being balanced with those responsibilities. So yes, responsibilities are important, but we don't want to just go all into Saturn and just get into the responsibilities and all this deeper stuff, or whatever it is we're building in our life. That is about meaningfulness, yes, but at the same time, we have to stop to smell the roses. We got to ground ourselves, connect, enjoy life. And I think it's a great full moon to do that. All right, so yeah, that's the strongest astrological event. And then the sun shifting into Sagittarius the second half of the week. Probably a bit more expansive, adventurous, and maybe some things to rethink about that, about our belief systems, about what is possible in life going into next week. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this for the different signs. you can go ahead and click down below for your sign to skip ahead to this portion of the horoscope. All right, Aries. So welcome to your weekly horoscope here. Let's go ahead and take a look at where everything's at. Of course, you Aries follow the collective energies very closely because the houses are essentially associated with the signs for you. So for example, Taurus is about the resourceful side, but Taurus is your second house, which is the house of resources. So it's very similar to the collective reading, except now we're looking at not only are these qualities prominent, like resourcefulness, but it's those things in your life particularly. So for example, this full moon is coming ahead for things like your finances, okay, things like your investments, again, your inner self-reliance, your resourcefulness. A really good time to continue to cultivate these things, these inner resources of yours, maybe even your natural gifts. What are your natural gifts? I think all of this is coming ahead because with the full moon, there's a lot of awareness about it. And it has been a very deep time for you, of course, because the sun has been transiting, your 8th house of Scorpio and Ophiuchus. Saturn's been in here helping you take this stuff seriously. But this is the balancing point. How can you connect to the material values of life while at the same time connect to what matters most in life and find that balancing point? Because they're really one and the same thing. They're just two sides of the same coin. And of course, with the sun, this is your self-expression. So you're expressing yourself probably in deeper ways. You're focused on deeper things. Maybe it's been about vulnerability with yourself and with life and with relationships perhaps, but most importantly, of course, with life. And there's probably been a lot of healing. Okay, so continuing to do that, particularly the first half of the week while you still have the sun in the 8th. And then as a result, the second half, I think there is a transformation with your self-expression this week. I think the second half, you'll probably be feeling much easier to express yourself, maybe focused on possibilities, potentials of that 9th house. Maybe in regards to what you've already been thinking about with Mercury in the 9th. It can be anywhere from philosophy to travel, things like that. But more of that energy, even though I think you'll be rethinking some of those belief systems or possibilities or expansive things. But that's okay. That's what Mercury retrograde is all about, is helping you rework all that. But that'll be next week. All right, so this week, I think the most important thing here is about the balance between the material life and the deeper life, right? Needing both, finding that they are one and the same thing. It could even be, too, with all of this self-reliance that is coming ahead, it's also balancing that with relying on others. And that's what Saturn's been helping you do probably. And this is all part of the whole vulnerability thing too, is that it's so good for you to be connecting with others in a way that you are, relying on them, or you're trusting them. You're depending on them, whether it's emotionally or it could be literally resources. Okay, so of course we live in an interdependent world and our lives are interdependent, and we do have to have a healthy amount of both self-reliance and reliance on others. And it could even be, too, a time where you could be, again, not only doing this inner work of freeing yourself, but freeing yourself from any bonds like debts, like external things that could be restricting you, right? So maybe another good week to continue with that if it's anything on the physical level like that, or anything involving others' resources. All right, so that's the full moon. The kite will be trining up to your ruler, Mars. In fact, Mars has recently gone into your 11th last week. So, it's still an excellent time, I think, to be pursuing your aspirations, if you aren't already. Definitely this week. So, whether it's your personal aspirations, like your hopes and wishes for the future, whether it's connecting with your friends or your network circles or your community, really good sources of energy. And I think that's the overall theme with all this too, at least in terms of what's shifted. So a lot of support with that, with the trine up to Mars. You could still be feeling a bit inspired or open-minded if you were last week, because of course your ruler will still be trining up to Jupiter. And the sextile to Uranus, a bit of easygoingness probably with this full moon. And that could be very freeing for you. And then of course some healing, but that's all part of that 8th house as well. All right, so that's the full moon. Now, starting off the week with that trine from Uranus, I think on Monday, you probably will be feeling quite expressive, I think. And again, it's in this deeper way, or it's with whatever it is you're focused on in this deeper dimension. But yeah, very freeing, I think, with the self-expression, with the creative stuff on Monday. And then that could be fueling some of the full moon as well. I also want to remind you still got Venus up in the 10th house, so still a really good time to be connecting with relationships through your career, if that's the case, or through your public life. Or it could be just enjoying your career a bit, seeing the values you have through your career. In fact, Venus does rule that 2nd house of yours, so could very well be that this full moon is helping you see the value with the productive side of things. All right, so it could be good there to continue with that. And and then as we get into the weekend, after the sun, your self-expression transforms. You're probably feeling a bit more open-minded or philosophical or whatever. Mercury starts to slow down, and then I think that's a good time to rework, rethink maybe some of those 9th house things. All right, mostly the belief systems. All right, what's your worldview? How do you see things? What's your perspective there? And then all the stuff you'll be learning about that with Mercury retrograde will be taking you into the next few weeks. All right, Aries. So that's your weekly. Of course, if you have any questions, please do let me know. Have a great one. Be sure to like, comment, and share this video. And I did want to let you all know that I am running a holiday and New Year special for 20% off readings, as I normally do during the holidays. If you want one of those, be sure to click the link down in the description below for the discount. And have a great week. All right, Taurus, let's go ahead and have a look at this week for you. So this full moon, it's going to be in your sign. That's by far the most important thing you've got going on here. The high points, especially with a lot of the things that maybe you started about 6 months ago. That's when you had the new moon in your sign. So things are coming ahead. I think at the very least, it's a great time to do a status check on your life. See what's working and what's not. You'll likely find some things are working well in your life, some things are not. A lot of it has to do with your goals, has to do with your aspirations. You're also, coming ahead and gaining some awareness about what you're about who you are, your your self-image, and your independence in life. So really good week for that, and continuing with those insights and maybe putting some of those insights in motion, especially because we do have, again, these supportive aspects to this full moon and this kite. Of course, balancing this with relationships. Saturn in your 7th house has been helping you take the whole relationship dynamic seriously over the past roughly year and a half. So hopefully you've done that or been doing that, and it will be a continuous theme there. But the sun is still helping you gain energy and prana and life force through connecting with others. All types of relationships, right? Whether it's romantic, business, family, whatever it might be. Really good time to be focused there on those one-to-one relationships. But of course, it does require balance. This is the balancing act between the 1st house, your personal needs, and then the 7th house of others' needs, the relationship. So when you're finding that balance, it's, you see that they're really just two sides of the same coin. That what is actually good for you is what's good for relationships, In other words, what your personal needs are actually beneficial to others' needs, and others' needs are beneficial to you when others are taken care of, in your life, or, you have that other-oriented perspective. Then, of course, it requires us to know more about ourselves, to have good relationships as well. So definitely you can see that they're really just two sides of the same coin. Different, of course, self and other, but the same. So great week for that. Great week for seeing the importance of both independence and those relationships. All right, and with this context, of course, your ruler, Venus, being in the 9th house, I think a lot of what's coming ahead is probably in regards to a bit of the adventurous side of things. All right, it's a really good time for that. Whether you're studying philosophy, whether you're going for hikes or walks, or just getting outside more. Some of you might be traveling at the moment, could very well be. Things like that. Your expansive worldview with Venus. So things coming ahead with those matters as well, I think, to a degree. And also a good time to do a status check with your belief systems, seeing what's possible, opening your mind to possibilities, that kind of a thing. And then, of course, the full moon is going to be trining up to that Mars and Jupiter, so there is the inspiration. I think there's a lot of motivation to be cultivating your career at the moment, which is really good. So this week, continuing with that, seeing where you can put some positive energy there with the productive side of matters. And Jupiter, helping you see the potentials of expressing yourself. And there should be a lot of positive energy to do that. Whether it's quite literally expressing yourself or getting involved in hobbies or interests or creative pursuits, projects, things like that. Anything that's close to the heart or things you create or have created in your life. Then, of course, the sextile to Uranus, I think mixing things up with your aspirations, supportive to this full moon as well. Maybe even spending some time with friends or community things. Of course, there's some healing with those aspirations and community things, so being open to that as well. But I think the strongest thing this full moon is going to be about this status check, about you, about the importance of independence, your personal needs, your aspirations in life. All right, and then so the Monday leading up to this, the sun will be trining up to Uranus. So you probably will be feeling a bit free-spirited, maybe just around home or with family. Maybe just mixing things up there in the roots department, because the sun does, of course, rule your 4th house. And the supportive energies with this whole full moon is probably going to be with relationships, as I discussed, maybe a bit of tranquility. Mars rules both your 7th, your 12th. Jupiter rules your 8th and 11th. So again, support with maybe those aspirations, maybe a bit of the deeper dimension of life, seeing what truly matters there. And a bit of an opening with understanding more about what you're about and that supporting all the different areas. All right, then as we get into Friday, the sun's going to be shifting into Sagittarius, your 8th house. So things are, your mind's already been in a deeper sphere. You got Mercury in your 8th. So it's still a great time to be communicating in deeper ways, thinking about things in deeper ways, thinking about your deeper values in life, expressing yourself in deeper ways. And so once the sun goes in there, I think it'll be really shining the light on the importance of having that deeper connection to life. Being aware of your fears, accepting your fears, being aware of your vulnerabilities and your weaknesses, accepting them. And as a result, I think there's a lot of healing taking place naturally within you over this coming month, as there already has been. And I think you're going to be reconsidering a lot of this once Mercury goes retrograde next week. Okay, so this reconsideration of what it really means to, be open and vulnerable and all this stuff, and the benefits of that, of course. And the other thing, too, is about shared resources. Some of you might be reconsidering some of that or getting into some focus on those matters. And this will, of course, be the location of the new moon next week as well. All right, Taurus, so that's the week in a nutshell for you. Definitely this full moon in your sign. Great time to do the status check of your life in general, seeing the importance of your personal needs and how that can be balanced with the relationships and cultivating those relationships as well. All right, that's the responsible side, which is Saturn. All this positive support involving all those key areas I mentioned could be a bit motivating, could be a bit inspiring. So use that towards the self, towards the self-expression, maybe towards the productive career life. And this is all in the greater context that it's such a good time for you to be expanding your horizons with Venus in the ninth, studying maybe getting into astrology, spirituality, or just quite literally expanding those horizons. All right, Taurus, so have a great week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and share before you go. And I want to let you know that I am running a holiday New Year special, as I normally do this time of year, for 20% off the readings that I do. So you can click the link down in the description or in the comment section for that. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you there. If not, I'll see you next week. All right, Taurus, have a good one. All right, Geminis, welcome to your weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look at what we've got going on for you this week. We've got that full moon. It's going to be in your 12th house. So I think it's a receptive week. Usually full moons are quite illuminating. It's not like your sun's in the 12th, but the full moon here can certainly help you become more aware of your, the importance of having peace and tranquility in your life, your spiritual life, if you will. And so a really good time to see how that area of life is going for you. Do you have the calm? Do you have the tranquility? Maybe there's some things coming ahead, to your forefront, to your conscious awareness that has been preventing you from having more peace. In other words, things you can accept, whether it's within you or about your life or in your life, things you can let go of, in fact. The 12th house is about surrendering and letting go of everything outside of our immediate control. Because, of course, what's the point of being concerned with at all and giving energy to things that are, mental energy to things that are outside of our immediate control? And that can be preventing us, of course, from having peace and tranquility and that spiritual connectivity. So however that manifests for you, it does make it a really good time for getting your alone time, maybe doing some meditating, yoga, things like that, whatever it is that puts you into that receptive state. Usually in Taurus for you, it might be connected to nature or eating a good meal even, really getting into the sensual and relaxing side of life, enjoying the material life. But yeah, doing the status check, see how this area is going for you and continue to cultivate that. Now, the full moon being in this kite, this is, of course, about the balance, like I was saying, and this is a balance with your routine. Okay, so there's been a lot of energy here. Saturn's been in your 6th house, helping you really build your routine, take it seriously over the past year and a half. And so, yeah, continuing with that. But, of course, this is the balancing between what is in our control, which is the 6th. Yes, it's our routine. It's how we respond to our life. It's our time management, our energy management, our actions, right? So continuing there with those responsibilities, but with balance, while at the same time getting that rest, at the same time taking care of the everyday things. And as a result, yes, I think you will find that balance this week and a good synergy there. Now, the kite formation to all of this is that there's a trine to Mars, so this full moon could be supportive with the routine, since Mars does rule the 6th, in fact. Maybe a bit of flow this week about it. Maybe even a bit of your aspirations, some good support there, or friends and community matters. And maybe expanding your horizons a bit. Mars has recently gone into your 9th house, so I think you might find maybe philosophy or going for walks or things like that that expand your horizons can be a good source of motivation, a good source of energy for you. And maybe even just sharing wisdom or learning wisdom. Now, the other side to this is Jupiter. It could be supportive with relationships this week for you. Jupiter rules that 7th house, and even your career. Maybe a bit of flow with that. All right, a lot of this is coming from last week also. Okay, and the sextile to Uranus, maybe some freedom with the, again, this has been so important for you to find freedom with your career. your productive life. So maybe there's an opening this week to do that, but at the same time, you're probably doing some healing, some healing and some acceptance when it comes to that career and productive stuff. So doing that work as well. All right, so that's the Tuesday full moon. The first half of the week will really be emphasizing this. And right before that, the sun trining up to Uranus. Yeah, I think there is a bit of flow at the beginning too with your communication, with the career stuff on Monday in particular. And then, yeah, continuing around the Tuesday full moon. So then on Friday, so the second half of the week, really the weekend, the sun will be shifting into your 7th house, placing more of an emphasis on relationships. Okay, this is going to be the new chapter for you next week. So I think connecting with those relationships in your life, those one-to-one connections, I think you've already been probably thinking about this department or getting more communicative, learning about it. Your ruler's been here. So continuing with this already unfoldment of what has been this new and continuously new development of relationships these past couple weeks for you. So the real new beginnings will, of course, be during the new moon in 2 weeks. But yes, the sun coming in here can really help you gain energy, gain prana, gain life force through that area of life. Now, your ruler is going to go retrograde next week on Monday, as he does roughly a few times a year. So maybe over the weekend, slowing things down a bit, taking a bit of pause, and maybe starting to reflect on those relationships. All right, it's a good time to rework, rethink that area going into next week. All right, so Gemini, that's the week in a nutshell. I would say definitely the full moon being the emphasis about this importance of finding peace in life and, doing whatever it is that we can do to accept and to let go and surrender in our life, to find peace, to have true happiness, which is what the 12th house is fundamentally about. Although I don't think it's a more internalized time, because again, this is going to be just the full moon. It's just like these things are coming to the forefront. And then implementing and actually putting in that intuition, putting in that acceptance in your everyday sphere, and balancing it out with the everyday sphere, with those responsibilities. All right, and then of course your ruler Mercury in the 7th house, still an emphasis on relationships, which will be even more so towards the weekend when the sun goes in there. And then you'll probably see some new beginnings with that coming up shortly. And and all these supportive, the trine and all these supportive aspects with the full moon could be supporting a few of those key areas that I mentioned. All right, Gemini, so have a fantastic week. Be sure to like, comment, and share before you go. And I do want to let you all know that I am running a holiday and New Year special, as I normally do this time of year, for 20% off readings. So be sure to check out the link for that if you're interested. And have a great week. See you next time. All right, Cancer, welcome to your weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast. So let's go ahead and have a look at this week. The full moon is going to be in your 11th house of your personal aspirations. All right, so very nice there. Good time to do a status check this week. See how the personal aspirations are going, the future things, your hopes, wishes, things like that. All, of course, in the present moment. But, it's good to be striving towards those aspirations of yours at this time. And I think just maybe learning more about that, or just more awareness about that, actually. And a lot of you, it could be about friends or network circles, connecting with community, that sort of thing coming ahead too. So if you're feeling guided there, maybe doing that status check also, and cultivating that community sphere of your life. Now, the full moon is going to be in that kite, like I was saying. So the balance point with all this is with your self-expression. You've had this Sun and Saturn in the 5th house, particularly over the past year and a half. Hopefully you have been taking seriously a bit of that self-expression, whatever that is. Normally the things that are close to the heart, the things we enjoy, the things we create. And so continuing with that and balancing it, because really the world and your friends or the community and your aspirations need you to be expressing yourself, to be having fun and enjoying the things you're passionate about. Although it's more serious, it may not seem like enjoyment, it may seem more like work, in fact, with Saturn in the 5th. But still, nonetheless, these things that do give you inspiration or just simply you expressing yourself can be cultivated at this time. And that's really the best way of working with this full moon, is continue to cultivate the self-expression and bring that into the aspirations and into the community, and vice versa. Bring a bit of these higher perspectives, these ideals of yours, into your self-expression, because they're really just one and the same thing. You know, the things that we do enjoy and we are passionate about is what the community needs, or it is synced with our aspirations, depending on how you see that, depending on which area is more emphasized for you. All right, so that's the full moon there. Let's go ahead and take a look here at this trine, this grand trine with the kite. So Mars does rule your 5th house of self-expression, so there's already that support there, which is good. Mars also rules your 10th, so maybe this full moon could give you some support with the career and productive life. Certainly a bit of flow there. Mars has recently gone into your 8th, so maybe you're getting a bit more real and raw, you know, really getting into the deep truth of matters with Mars in the 8th house. And so, yeah, vulnerability, openness, trust, these are great things to continue to develop, and I think you'll find a lot of support with that with Mars in good aspect. Now, the Jupiter side to this is from the 3rd house, so still an excellent time to be learning, studying, using the practical mind of yours. Should be plenty of opportunities to do that or communicate. And the support this week could be there, and it could also be with your routine, your work on a daily level, and a bit of those belief systems. Jupiter rules your 9th. In fact, the sextile up to Uranus emphasizes that as well. Maybe some freedom to be had. They're expanding your horizons, whether it's through philosophy or quite literally, you know, whatever that might mean for you. Maybe there is some healing you're doing with that. Chiron is in the 9th, so it's a great full moon to do that inner healing work. See how what those wounds are about, accepting those wounds, relating to your belief systems and what's possible. But as you heal those wounds, it can be certainly very freeing and rejuvenating. And yeah, that's the full moon. So that's going to be around Tuesday. Leading up to that, there will be a Sun trine Uranus aspect. So again, supporting the expansive stuff. And again, maybe expressing yourself in a freer way. Maybe as a result of what maybe you started to take seriously last weekend regarding this. And the Sun does rule your 2nd house of resources and the financial side. So there could be a bit of freedom or support there around Monday, Tuesday. And then, yeah, the full moon will be on Tuesday. Then as we get into the weekend around Friday, the Sun starts to shift into your 6th house, placing an emphasis on where there's already been Mercury. So I think you've been thinking about maybe the routine or the work life, and that's good. Still lots to learn about that. In fact, Mercury going retrograde next week will really be helping you learn a lot about this area, more about your work, more about your routine, your self-improvement, good things to rework, rehash. But over the weekend, this weekend, the Sun going into that 6th can give you a bit of prana, life force, and focus in those everyday spheres. And I think that's where the new beginnings will be in a couple weeks regarding to the everyday stuff. All right, Cancer, so that's the week in a nutshell. The way I would sum this up is, yes, there is a full moon. It's in that 11th house of yours, having to do with your aspirations and possibly your career, or excuse me, your community. Whether it's friends, network circles, things like that. It's either or sometimes both. And there's a lot of support to do that. And again, balancing that with the self-expression, which you can be taking seriously, which is that 5th house. All right. And then the shift into the 6th, probably more focus on the everyday work, self-improvement. All that's going to be reworked next week. And let's not forget, you can be enjoying relationships still. You do have Venus in the 7th, helping you connect on that level, which is good as well. All right, Cancer, so have a great week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and share before you leave. And yeah, do check the description down below if you're interested in a reading, because this is the time of year, the holiday and New Year special. This year I'm giving 20% off readings. So do click the description or the comment section if you'd like a reading. It's also good for friends and family as well. But yeah, have a great week. Thanks for watching. Leos, welcome to your weekly forecast here. So let's go and have a look at what we've got. So the full moon's in your 10th house of career, your productive life. It's very nice. Good time to do a status check. How is your career going? Good thing to examine this week. See what's working, what's not. Likely there are some things that are not working for you in the career front. Maybe it's time to let them go. Maybe. Listen to your inner guidance about that. But in either case, do the status check involving career. It's not just for profit career, anything that you consider as your legacy or your public life or your productive life, things like that. And so with the awareness, it's great to continue over these coming months to put now some more positive energy into all this productive stuff in your life. All right, so that full moon will be, of course, in this kite like I was talking about. This is about balancing the home life and your health with all this. We can't have good career, productive life if things aren't good around our personal life and our health. So Saturn's been helping you take all this very seriously over the past roughly year and a half. So yeah, with this full moon, balance this. Continue to take seriously a bit of that personal life, home life, or your health. And without going to an extreme either. We don't want to just go all into the Saturn side. But at the same time, cultivate the career. Find that balance because they're really one and the same thing. The fourth house is where we're coming from. It's our roots. And then the 10th house is where we're going. But of course, we're in the middle. We're in the present moment. And so being rooted and grounded in your emotions, in your personal life, in your sentiments, and yes, continue to grow, continue to expand there with the productive stuff or the community stuff, anything that we are giving back to society. Now, the aspects with this are supportive, like I was saying. So we have some trines here. The trine up to Mars means that there has been perhaps a bit more motivation this week, coming into the week, to maybe get involved in relationships in some sense, or be more direct in relationships, more independent there. So great time to do that, a lot of support for that. Mars rules your fourth also, so support with the home and family life and maybe even relationships around there, or relationships getting into that emotional sphere. And expansive too. You could be feeling maybe open-minded this week, which is very good with a trine up to Mars there. So the other side being Jupiter, still a great time as it is going into 2017. Of seeing possibilities and potentials with your values, maybe with your resources, the finances, the material life, that kind of stuff. And so as you cultivate some of those values there, you're going to find that, yes, there is opportunities. Yes, there is a bit of support even this week for that. And you might even be expressing yourself this week. Could be easy to do so in deep and meaningful ways as well. Jupiter rules your 5th and your 8th. And that sextile up to Uranus, in fact, there is 8th house aspects from the full moon. So this has been about you having freedom with when we are vulnerable with life, open with life, deep and meaningful with life. So a great week to do that. Of course, there's probably some healing with that. Chiron is in the 8th, but that's the challenge with this square, is to, challenge yourself there to connect on that deeper level. All right, so that's the aspects with the full moon. Right before that, the sun, your ruler, is going to be trining up to Uranus on Monday. So you could be finding maybe a bit of, free-spiritedness, mixing things up on Monday, trying something new and different. There's a lot of support for that. And on Friday, so this weekend of this week, your ruler is going to shift into the 5th. So I think where things have been more of a focus on your private life or your home life, things like that, There's definitely a shift during the weekend about you having fun, or again, you expressing yourself. Which is your house, Leo. You know, this is about everything you're passionate about. This is about your creative self-expression. It could be quite literally things like hobbies, interests, things you've created in your life, stuff like that. Anything that's close to the heart. And Mercury's already been here, so I think you already have been expressing yourself more with Mercury there. There is some reflection going on. Mercury's going to go retrograde next week, so a good time to rethink of, you know, some of these projects or creative things, or the self-expression or what have you. And you'll be learning a lot about that, but definitely a shift nonetheless, where you're gaining more energy, gaining more prana going into next week regarding that self-expression. All right, so Leo, that's the week in a nutshell. The full moon being the astrological emphasis here on the 10th house, productive life. Really good to do the status check, put some energy there. There's a lot of momentum with this, a lot of awareness. Of course, balancing that with the responsibilities regarding home, family, or health. And yeah, you'll probably notice this shift going into the weekend of this focus on expressing yourself. And that's going to be the new moon in about 2 weeks. New beginnings with self-expression, creativity, all that stuff that you're about. All right, Leo, so have a great one. Thanks for watching. Before you go, be sure to like, comment, and share. And I want to let you all know that I am running a holiday and New Year special for 20% off readings. So if you'd like a personal reading, looking at your personal chart, be sure to check the description or the comment section down below. All right, Leo, so have a great one. Thanks for watching. Take care. Virgos, let's go ahead and have a look at your week here. So the full moon is going to be in your 9th house of the adventurous side of life, or the life path, or philosophy, spirituality, astrology, things that open your horizons and are abroad. You know, information that's coming from abroad, wisdom, higher learning, university studies for some of you, all this more expansive stuff coming ahead. So the full moon is about doing a status check. And I think it's an excellent week to do that, this first half. How is your belief systems? How is your worldview? What do you see as possible in life? And and continuing to cultivate that. You'll probably know some things in your life regarding this whole wisdom, philosophy, higher learning stuff, whatever, is going well for you, is coming ahead, and some is not. And that's just the nature of the full moon. You know, it's the analogy of the garden. It's the time when we start to see the fruit that our plants have started to bear, and the ones that haven't borne fruit, and letting go of, maybe removing those plants and putting positive energy into the ones that were bearing fruit in your life. And so it's a great next couple weeks. It's a great next 6 months, in fact, to continue to cultivate these higher things in life. Or again, maybe just most fundamentally, your belief systems, your worldview. So the supportive aspects with this, in the kite, of course, the balance is with the practical stuff. You know, Saturn's been helping you really take seriously this more practical stuff in life, whether it's the correspondence or learning, reading, writing, could be, you know, these are good things to challenge yourself with, as it has been over the past year and a half. Even with your mind, you know, really getting into the intellectual and practical mind. So this is the classic example that, yes, there's possibilities, there's theories, there's beliefs, all this more expansive stuff, but at the same time we have to root it and ground it into what is real, into what is practical, what actually has worked and what does work. Now, that's not to say that, you know, these, you know, things that have worked, you know, things change. Yes, there can be these new things coming into it, this more open view, which is how we come up with ideas and innovation and things like that. But it has to be rooted, it has to be grounded in practicality. So balancing the two, really seeing that they're really just two sides of the same coin. What is possible is practical and can be applied. And what is practical is, it all came from a place of, you know, the higher learning, from higher wisdom and philosophies and ideas. You know, a good way of thinking about it is the third house is like the left side of the brain. The ninth house is like the right side of the brain. So it's about merging the two, the creative with the practical. So that's the opposition side to it. Of course, the grand trine, Jupiter in your first house, still a really good time to be expanding your horizons just because Jupiter's in the first. Probably been feeling that at least the past 6 months. So good to continue with that. Maybe placing an emphasis on relationships could be supported this week. Maybe placing an emphasis on home and family, your roots in life. In fact, Mercury's there. So you've probably likely already been thinking about or reworking some of this, personal life or your health. And next week, Mercury will go retrograde. So it's a good time to maybe start getting the prep work or just start to feel the shifts that could be taking place for you to reconsider some of these things, rework some of these things so you have good roots in your life, good family relationships, a good connection with your body, such as through your health, things like that, listening to your intuition, getting your reflective time. In fact, when the sun shifts in there, which will be Friday, so this weekend, you'll likely find that it is good to be getting some of that private life or home and family life, and could be a great source of energy and prana for you. All right, but those things are supportive with the triumph to Jupiter during the full moon as well. And the full moon trining Mars is that this week is great for motivating yourself with your work, your routine, taking care of things. This is your house, the sixth house. Mars going in here can really help you do that. Or maybe getting some independence, some active energy with the work or the routine. And Mars rules the third, so your communication could be supportive with the full moon, as well as connecting to what matters most in life. Mars does rule your eighth as well. All right, so that's the full moon. And we pretty much covered it. So right before that, the sun is going to be trining up to that Uranus, so there is a lot of positive support with the relationships, particularly Monday, mixing things up. This has been about freedom with relationships, as it has been for the past roughly 7 years with Uranus in your seventh. But could be fun, exciting, maybe something different, unique. Mixing it up could be supportive there. And then the full moon on Tuesday, giving that status check of the importance of your belief systems, of what is possible, balancing that with the practical, with the mind, with the hard work. Not hard work in terms of doing things you don't enjoy, but really focusing your attention and putting in that willpower into whatever it is that you feel like you want to or may need to take seriously regarding things like learning or communication, and maybe even your peers or siblings or community even, which is all third house. All right, so balancing the two, there's a lot of support in those key areas I mentioned, even from your first house, which is good with Jupiter. And and then the shift you'll likely notice going into next week towards the roots in your life, gaining energy there, getting some of that private time, family time, and maybe rethinking a lot of that, which will be your ruler going retrograde next week. All right, Virgo, so have a great one. Thanks for watching. Before you go, be sure to like, comment, and share this video. And I do want to mention that I am running a holiday and New Year special for 20% off readings. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check out the link down below as well. All right, so have a great one. See you next week. Libras, welcome to your weekly forecast. So let's go and have a look at this week. We've got the full moon, which is in your eighth house. All right, this is the house of everything that is deeper and more meaningful in life. It's also the house of shared resources. So a really good time to do a status check. How is the deeper side of life going for you? Do you have that? And of course, we can always get better at it, or there's no real end point with it. But how is the vulnerability with life? How is that openness? How is that healing, the transformation, connecting to what matters most, and piercing the veil and getting into that psychological work of facing the fears, accepting the fears, accepting the vulnerabilities, accepting our weaknesses. All this can be very transformative. I don't think it's going to be prolonged. It's not like the sun's here or anything. This is just a status check of where now you can implement a bit of what really matters in life and get, again, that acceptance in life that can fuel your life and give you motivation and support all the different areas. In fact, with this grand trine, with this kite, there is a lot of supportive energy with this, okay, especially with the moon exalted in Taurus. So great to do that status check. Put that energy, the deeper, more meaningful energy into your life. Maybe even do a status check also about the whole shared resources thing. Anything from anything you share with others, from bonds, in a sense of like debts, possibly. Maybe doing a status check about that. Releasing yourself from unhealthy debts, unhealthy bonds, unhealthy attachments. Some of you too maybe income coming in from someone else or some sort of interdependent situation. It's quite possible. But no matter what, doing the status check and continue to cultivate these things that come to your awareness over these coming weeks and months. All right, so with the kite formation, there is the balancing act with the material life. So it is certainly, as it has been, an emphasis on your material values, but it's been a bit more serious with Saturn. So still a great time to take seriously this week the resources, your personal self-reliance, and maybe doing the saving or the investing, the things that do take the disciplined approach to do. But realizing too that they're really just two sides of the same coin, like I was saying in the collective reading, is that you've got this deeper stuff and then you've got this more material stuff. And we really can't have one without the other. They're really just two sides of the same coin. So bridging the gap, merging the two, and seeing that, yes, you can cultivate your material values. They take time, so patience is key. But put in that, that focused willpower there. And, connect to what matters most. And in that way, you're really syncing those values, both material and non-material, in your life. Now, the trines are going to be supporting all this. So this is Jupiter in your 12th. Still a great time to be getting that alone time, reflective time, meditative time as it has been the past 6 months. It could be support with that, maybe easy going this first half of the week. Maybe good for communication and learning. Maybe even good for the work life, in the everyday life, especially with the sextile up to Uranus. Maybe some freedom, some new things there with the work and everyday life there. The trine up to Mars is a Mars that's recently shifted into your 5th. So a great week for you to be expressing yourself, tapping into a bit of that independent self-expression, direct self-expression. Could even find a bit of support with those material things, in fact, with the trine up to Mars. And relationships, also supportive with this as well. All right, so those are the key areas. But the most important thing is, of course, the status check about the deeper dimension and balancing that with the earth and values and everything that earth does provide. So before the full moon, the sun will be trining up to Uranus. So there is, you'll probably be feeling, maybe coming into the week, maybe you're feeling quite inspired. Or maybe there's some new and different things with friends or groups, maybe around the work sector. Certainly possible. That's already sort of been the case with Uranus there. But good to mix things up around Monday, even around Tuesday, maybe involving the everyday sphere. And then as we get into the weekend, the sun will be shifting into your 3rd house. So there is more energy going into your 3rd, where I think you've already had Mercury. It's been a really good time for learning, reading, writing, sharing, communicating, that sort of thing. But the sun shifting into that 3rd over the weekend, giving you prana, life force, when you are connecting with ideas, when you are picking up that book or doing some writing or whatever it might be. And your ruler Venus is down in the 4th house. So as a backdrop to all of this, it's still really good for you to be connecting to your private life or your home life or connecting with your body through your health. This is all the more receptive stuff. And all these, personal planets of yours, like the sun, Venus, and even Mars for that matter, and Mercury, they're all at the bottom of the chart. So it is good to be reflective right now. It is good to have that intuitive, reflective sort of energy about life, while still learning, while still connecting with family or your health, while still expressing yourself, right? And then doing the status check about what matters most and cultivating that. All right, so Libra, that's the week in a nutshell. Definitely the emphasis on the full moon. It is a supportive full moon. Maybe there were some things 6 months ago that you started having to do with shared resources or having to do with what matters in life, and cultivating that, continuing with that, bringing that energy of accepting the fears, accepting the vulnerabilities, accepting the weaknesses, and opening up. And as you open up, it's very freeing, very transformative. The 8th house, very healing, and all that supporting all the other key areas. All right, Libra, so have a great one. Be sure to like, comment, and share before you go. And I do want to let you all know that I am running a holiday and New Year special for 20% off readings. So if you are interested in that, be sure to check out the link. All right, have a good one, Libra. Take care. Scorpio and a Fucus. All right, let's have a look here at your horoscope for this week. So the full moon's in your 7th house of relationships. All right, so great week to do some status check with the whole relationship dynamic of your life. Some things are coming ahead for some of you involving relationships, particularly if you've been involved with anything in that department the past couple weeks, or probably more likely the past 6 months. All right, 6 months ago you had a new moon in the 7th, so now it's the solar cycle of where things come ahead. So what you'll notice, all of you, is that some things are working or are well with the whole relationship sphere, and some things are not, right? And that's just the nature of life. It's the nature of this full moon. Maybe letting some things go that are no longer serving you with the whole relationships. And it's not so much external, it's all within, right? It's your perspective of relationships and that kind of thing. And so being aware of this, and I think naturally you will be aware of it. I think there is this insight coming in about relationships, or the importance of relationships, or things, coming to light. And so with whatever this insight is, continue to move forward these next 6 months, continue to put positive energy into those one-to-one connections. And I think it's an excellent week to do just that. Now, the opposition to the full moon is, of course, in your 1st house, where you've had Saturn. And first of all, happy birthday for those of you Fucuses who have your birthdays this week. But the sun in the 1st for all of you is this still prana and life force and focus on the self. Now, the life force, the willpower might be a bit throttled because, of course, the sun went over Saturn. So it's been about focusing that attention, focusing that conscious attention on your responsibilities, or just the things that you want to build and prolong in your life, right? And so that's what Saturn's been helping you do. So an excellent time to continue with that. And then balancing those personal needs of yours, which yes, you are focused on, yes, you are building with Saturn, and even that independence, with relationships, right? This is the classic example of balancing your personal needs with others' needs, or the relationship needs, and really seeing that they're just two sides of the same coin. That yes, what is actually good for you is good for everyone else, and vice versa. So balance is the name of the game with this full moon, as most are, but especially because Saturn's involved here, and seeing that they are two sides of the same coin, and that you can cultivate both, bridge the gap, bring the two together, and that they can both be beneficial, they can both be balanced. There can be cooperation, there can be harmony, all that 7th house stuff. All right, so then the trines, we got the trine up to Jupiter, so still an excellent time to be expanding those aspirations of yours, or maybe spending some time with friends or community. That's Jupiter in the 11th. Jupiter also does rule your 2nd, so maybe some support this week with the financial material stuff, which I think you'll be reworking next week, because Mercury is going to go retrograde next week there. But yeah, maybe some support this week to continue with putting energy into that. And then also too with expressing yourself. Maybe a bit of a self-expression there. during this first half in particular. Then the trine up to Mars, your ruler, so very good. Full moon trining a ruler in this kite formation. You could be finding that, yes, it's probably a bit more receptive. You know, Mars is in the 4th house, so this is about your home life. This is about family. It's about your health. And so put energy into that. This is where your motivation can be. This is the theme of the overall time period and will be for the next roughly month with Mars there. So how can you put energy into, you know, your sentiments, the things that are important to you emotionally, maybe reflecting on things, maybe getting a bit of that private life, stuff like that. That's the source of energy. That's the motivation. It's very different from what Mars is used to. But, you know, when you are pursuing or focused on those sentiments and your roots, there is motivation, there's drive, there is energy there. Okay. But you may feel too that even though the sun's in your first, maybe your energy levels are a bit on the low side right now, but that's okay. Because again, it's about connecting to these this more watery dimension of life, this intuition, reflecting on things, learning more about where you come from, your past, all that good stuff. But the trine, yeah, so very supportive with that. And then Mars does rule your 6th, so you'll likely find that there is support with the routine, probably, this first half as well. All right, and then Friday, going into the weekend, the sun is going to shift into your 2nd, placing more of an emphasis on the resources and values and the finances and all that. So good sources of energy there. And then what I think you'll find is in 2 weeks, there'll be some new beginnings shaping up slowly but surely. But with Mercury retrograde, again, there's some things to rework there. So especially over the weekend, it's going to slow down there, or, you know, start to reconsider, or just get ready for some reconsideration with the whole material values, resources, even inner resources, reflecting on your self-reliance, your sense of self-worth, things like that. All right, so Scorpio and Ophiuchus this week, certainly the emphasis on the full moon in the relationship sector. Good time to do a status check with that area of your life, supporting all the other areas as a result, but balancing that with these responsibilities, or with these things that are more in alignment with your personal needs. But of course, we can't have one without the other, and that's the balance of the full moon. Then as things unfold going into the weekend, the shift into the finances or the resources can be great sources of focus. You can be learning a lot about that with Mercury, maybe even enjoying a bit of learning, reading and writing. Venus is in your 3rd, which could be good. And as a backdrop, Mars, your ruler, in the 4th, giving you a good opportunity here to be connecting to your roots and the emotional, intuitive side to life. All right, so Scorpio and Ophiuchus, have a great week. Be sure to like, comment, and share before you do go. And I want to let you all know that I am running a holiday and New Year special. So if you'd like that, do check the description. It's 20% off for readings. And this is also includes friends and family as well. All right, so have a good one. See you next week. Sagittarius, let's have a look at this week. So the full moon's in your 6th house, which is the house of your daily stuff, whatever you do on a daily level, whether it's your work, whether it's your routine, anything about that self-improvement stuff and improving your craft. So a good time to do the status check, as all full moons are all about. Do the status check. How is your work life? How is your personal development? How is your routine? And you'll likely notice some things are working well, some things are not. Continue with what is working well. Be willing to let go of what isn't. And that's the full moon time. Continuing now for the next 6 months, putting energy into time management, energy management, health, diet, regimens, improving your craft at work, things like that. And if there was anything 6 months ago that you started or something having to do with work or the routine, it is coming ahead this week. All right. So, but in either case, great week to put positive energy into those everyday experiences. Now, the full moon is going to be in that opposition with the Sun and Saturn. So this is about balance. And this is balance with what is and has been, I think, this more receptive time of you maybe getting your alone time, maybe working a bit behind the scenes. This has, in some way, with your career and stuff, has been maybe more emphasized the past year and a half with Saturn. Saturn is often a career planet. So, maybe working behind the scenes, maybe getting in touch with your routine or your work in a way that's a bit more receptive or in the present moment, more fulfilling to your soul and that sort of thing. But whether it's work related or not, this is the classic example of balancing the everyday work with the rest, with the relaxation, with the inner time, whether it's through meditation, spiritual activities, prayer, whatever it is that helps you really surrender everything that's outside of your immediate control, right? And as you do that, it's freeing you up. In fact, I think you will be quite freed up this week. The Sun will be going into that first house of yours. And happy birthday for those of you who have your birthdays this week. But this transformation for all of you in terms of coming out of a very watery time, very receptive time, and now focusing on your personal needs, your goals, your independence, all right, and just a bit more of that active energy with the Sun in the first, where the Sun loves to be. So that's coming, like I said, over the weekend. But leading up to that, I think definitely doing the status check about balancing work and basically everything in your immediate control, and then letting go of everything that's outside of your immediate control. And that's a great way of balancing these two houses. There's a lot of supportive aspects with this full moon, a trine up to Jupiter in the 10th, helping you see opportunities and potentials probably with your career, as it has been. It's your ruler, full moon trining your ruler, very nice. Maybe again feeling like even in the earlier part of the week, maybe a bit like there is some flow, there is some momentum, and that could be again, supporting the shift into the first house, this transformation. And home life, family life could be supportive, maybe something new and different there with the sextile up to Uranus. There's still some healing maybe you're doing in that department or with the emotional body, but this is a minor thing compared to the other aspects, but still doing that acceptance, rejuvenation can help you really free up those roots in your life, your emotions, the family life, and even your health as well. Then the trine up to Mars. Mars has recently gone into your third, so it's a great week to put some energy into reading, writing. It's a great source of motivation and drive, maybe communication, getting into the intellectual side of life. That's where the motivation is, and the trine can certainly help you do that. Mars does rule your fifth house. You could be expressive during this full moon. It may even be, again, supporting the reflective, right? Maybe you are willing to go with the flow. There's more support for that, which is good. All right, and so coming into that full moon on Monday, the Sun will be trining up to Uranus again, maybe something new and different there with the home family life, with your roots. Could be supported there. Maybe you feeling more expansive. Sun rules your ninth, of course, so maybe a bit more open-minded, seeing possibilities and potentials. And then as we get into the weekend, with the Sun shifting into your first, definitely that transformation coming out of the watery time period. Still good for you to take that stuff seriously, which is Saturn. But on a more personal level, Sun comes into the first, a little bit more focus on the energy, the self, your goals, stuff like that. Mercury's already here. You are going to be reflecting and I think reworking, reconsidering a lot of things that you are involved with Mercury retrograde in your sign next week. So good weekend to sort of pause with that. Even though you gain the energy, just kind of know that things are going through a sort of rehashing with the goals, with the things you're about and your self-image. So it's a good way to segue into next week. All right, Sag, but this week, the full moon is going to be the emphasis. This is going to be in your sixth house. Great time to do the status check with your work, your routine. How's that going? Continue to put positive energy into that for the next 6 months, supporting a lot of the key areas that I mentioned, balancing that with the receptive time and this shift, this transformation, I think, second half of the week with what is going to be a reflecting time, but still more prana, more life force about your goals and the things you're about. All right, so Sagittarius, have a great week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and share before you go. And if you'd like a reading, I am offering a holiday and New Year special, as I normally do this time of year, for 20% off readings. So that includes for you and for friends and family as well. All right, so have a great one. See you next week. Capricorns, all right, let's have a look at this week for you. So the full moon's going to be in your 5th house of self-expression. All right, so great time to be doing this status check about the things that are close to your heart, the things that you create in life. Maybe it's creative projects for some of you. Maybe it's becoming more aware of the children in your life, if you have children in your life. Maybe it's about your creative side. Maybe it's about entertainment, fun. Maybe it's hobbies and interests. Basically anything that is close to the heart that you create or you're involved with on that passionate level could be coming to a head. Romance for some of you too, actually, it's very possible. To get a clue of what this might be, look back to about 6 months. 6 months ago, you started something new with this area. And so in the yearly cycle, now it's coming up to the full moon time where you can do the status check. Some things are working in this department. Some things are going well or flowing or in alignment with what you're focused on. And some things are not. Okay, so be willing to let go of what isn't and transition and continue to put energy into what is. And I think as a result, yes, it's a great week to be expressing yourself. It's a great week to be enjoying life. This is the 5th house. It's about playfulness. It's about lightheartedness, right? And creativity, all right? Enjoying a bit of that lighthearted, and through the lightheartedness, the creative side of life as well. So very good there. There's a lot of supportive aspects, like I said, in the collective, but the opposition is with what has been a big, strong emphasis for you, which is about your aspirations. You know, your ruler's been in the 11th for about the past year and a half. Still great to be cultivating those aspirations of yours, you know, future things, anything future related. And also maybe even too, for some of you, community or friends or your network circles, putting energy into that. But with this full moon, it is about balance. And so the balance is with the self-expression and with those aspirations. In other words, it's about bridging the gap. You know, that the aspirations need you to be doing things that you're passionate about, that you enjoy. The community needs you to be doing things you're passionate about, that you enjoy, and needs you to be expressing yourself, and vice versa. In order to express yourself and enjoy things, there has to be a higher cause or higher purpose or something like that. So knowing that these are just two sides of the same coin, balancing the two without going to just the aspirations and neglecting the passions, or just going into the passions and neglecting the aspirations of the community. It's about both, bringing the two together. And with the full moon opposing your ruler, Saturn, I think it's just all in all good to be balanced this first half of the week with that. All right, and so the trines with the kites, trining up to Jupiter in the 9th, still a great time to be expanding your horizons, maybe philosophy, spirituality, things like that with Jupiter in the 9th. Could be finding maybe it's an easygoing week, which is good, or you have some rest and relaxation time. Maybe there is some things supporting the communication and learning sphere. The other side of it's Mars recently has gone into your 2nd house of finances and resources. So maybe putting some motivation, some energy into the whole financial material life could be good this week. Venus is in your 1st house, of course, so could be good for looking good, feeling good, connecting with relationships. Again, expressing yourself more, and maybe even cultivating that career life, probably being emphasized at the moment with Venus ruling your 10th. Now, after the full moon, the sun is going to start to shift into your 12th. Okay, so you are coming into a receptive time. And Mercury's already been here, so it's probably already been this way to a degree, especially when it comes to your routine and it comes to your the things you're, your future things you're concerned about into the future. But whatever it is, it's good to be very receptive. I think especially this weekend, going into next week, you're going to be re-examining a lot of this 12th house stuff with Mercury retrograde. In other words, reconsidering your peace in life, maybe redoing some things so you have more peace in your life, understanding more about yourself spiritually, psychologically, and all that. So yes, you can have more of that peace and tranquility. All right. But over the weekend, really good for that. Getting alone time, meditation, prayer, stuff that helps you connect to God, connect to the universe, to the now moment, whatever the philosophy is. The philosophy doesn't matter here. This is just whatever helps you let go of and detach of everything outside of your immediate sphere of influence. And that's when we find peace. That's when we find tranquility. And so it's a good time to be working with that. And I think just focused on that going into the weekend. All right. But this week, definitely on the aspirations, definitely on the future things. Great to put positive energy into that. Balancing it with the self-expression. But again, great to be putting energy into your self-expression as well. It's about having fun. It's about entertainment. It's about creativity. And a lot of trines with that, supporting a lot of key areas. All right. And then that shift into spiritual dynamics going into the weekend. Receptivity, finding the peace. This is the house of true happiness. This is the house. 5th house is about fun, that kind of happiness. 12th house is about true happiness, of when we're living a centered and accepting life. And it's through the acceptance we find peace and true happiness. All right, so Capricorn, have a great week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and share before you leave. And I want to let you all know that I am running a holiday and New Year special for 20% off readings. So if you'd like to get a look at next year for you personally, or if you'd like to get a reading for your friends or family members, be sure to check that out. All right, so have a great one. See you all next week. Aquarius, welcome to your weekly forecast. So let's go ahead and have a look here at the full moon. So we've got the full moon in your 4th house of your home life and your roots and family and your health as well. So anything you started about 6 months ago having to do with these areas is now coming ahead. Could be some things being cultivated in your life having to do with these roots. Really good time to be reflective and maybe get some of that private time. Spend some time with family and whatnot. Yeah, some things you'll notice are working for you. Some things are cultivating in this area and some things are not. Some things need to be let go of. So there's a transition. So letting go of what isn't working for you in this department and continue to cultivate what is, I think is a really good way of working with this full moon. Now this is all about balance, like I was saying in the collective reading, because you do have your ruler in the 10th house of career along with the sun. So the emphasis in the bigger picture sense has been about your productive life or your career or your legacy, whatever that has been. And so continue to take that seriously. And I think with the sun too, continue to focus there and see where you can cultivate some of this patience with it too, this long-term approach to the whole productive life as well. But this is the classic example that in order to have good productive life, we do have to have good health and good personal life and good family life. And vice versa. In order to have good home and family life, we do have to have productive things. We have to be a part of society, give back, contribute. And so they're really just two sides of the same coin. And it's about being centered and anchored between them, right? Seeing that, yes, you can have good roots and good personal life as well as good productive life. And this is also the past and the future, the past being anchored in that this week, while at the same time growing and expanding and continuing to cultivate those future things of the 10th. All right, so that's the full moon. The supportive aspects with all of this, again, with the trines, you do have Jupiter in the 8th house, so still a really good time to be diving deep. Could come easy with Jupiter, which is good. Maybe relying on others a bit. Shared resources could be opportunities there for you. And Jupiter does rule your 11th, so a good week, I think, for the friends or community stuff, group stuff, maybe even the financial material stuff. It's quite possible. Jupiter does rule your 2nd. Full moon will be sextiling Uranus from the 2nd, which is about the financial material. But it's mostly your sense of self-reliance. You're probably feeling quite reliant, self-reliant. Maybe there are some wounds, though. Still, Chiron's helping you heal these wounds regarding all these inner and outer resources. So do the healing work during the full moon, but I think you'll find it quite rejuvenating and refreshing. The trine up to Mars. Mars has recently gone into your sign last week, so really good time to start getting a bit of that forward-moving energy. All right, Mars is coming out of your 12th. It's been more receptive. It's been more behind the scenes, but now you've got slowly but surely a bit more of this independence coming through, or motivation or drive or energy. So really good there for those active things. And enjoy a bit of the alone time and reflective time. You do have Venus in your 12th, of course, still. And Mars does rule your 10th house of career, so there is positive support there, a bit of flow this week, I think. And even, too, with learning, reading, writing, that kind of stuff could be supportive as well. All right, so that's the aspects. And then as we get into the weekend, the sun is going to start to shift into Sagittarius, your 11th house, which is where you've already had Mercury. So more of an emphasis on your aspirations, or more of an emphasis on friends and groups, community things, perhaps. There's a lot of things to be reworked about this, in fact, reconsidered. Mercury's going to go retrograde next week in the 11th, so a good time to rehash, reconsider some of these group things or your aspirations in life. And even, too, your self-expression, as it always is the case. Mercury does rule your 5th, and the importance of, again, connecting to life on a deeper level. But that'll be mostly next week, which I'll talk about. The most important shift is the sun this weekend. I think you will find that there is prana and life force through connecting to maybe a bit of the network circles, the friends, the group stuff, and those aspirations. Continue to focus on those future things there can be a great source of energy. All right, but the strongest thing, Aquarius, this week is the full moon in your 4th. Status check, a halfway point with the roots in your life. Home for some of you, family for some of you, location for some of you, health, reflecting on things, getting in touch with where you come from, who you are, your roots. And there's a lot of insight to be gained during this time, but to implement it, to move it forward, it's a very active thing to have a full moon, right? And even as the moon continues, it's in that gibbous phase, helping you put positive energy all week long with these roots in life. All right, so Aquarius, have a great one. Thanks for watching. Before you go, be sure to like, comment, and share. And I want to let you all know that I am running a holiday and New Year special for 20% off readings. So if you'd like to get a reading for yourself for 2017 or for friends or family for the holidays, be sure to get in touch. All right, so have a good one. See you all next week. Pisces, all right, let's have a look at this week. So we've got the full moon in your 3rd house. This is the house of learning. It's the house of communication. This is the house of reading, writing, sharing, exchanging. It's also the house of the marketplace for some of you who are involved in like business or exchanging like that. Anything that's about trade. But whatever it is, it's a really good time for all of you to do the status check with your mind, your practical mind. How is that going? In other words, are you applying and practicing the philosophies and the belief systems and the things that you've been probably focused on and maybe even taking seriously with the Sun and Saturn in your 9th? All right, so this is the balancing act, is that with this focus and with this attention on building your possibilities and your belief systems and your potentials in life and expanding your horizons, it's a really good time to anchor that into what is practical, what is real, and really applying it on that everyday sphere, in your immediate sphere. And and so if there has been anything over the past 6 months that you've been involved with regarding courses or reading or books or communication or trade or business, this could be all coming up to a head this week. But with the full moon, it is a status check. You're going to notice some things are working for you in this department, some things are not. So letting go of what isn't to continue to cultivate what is a great way of working with this. Now, the trines to this are involving Jupiter in your 7th, so I think there is positive support with relationships this week, even with your career, and of course with you being your chart ruler. So good to have a full moon trining the ruler. Great to see the potentials and opportunities with relationships right now, as it has been. And again, with the productive life, which is going to go through a sort of reflection, because Mercury is going to go retrograde next week regarding career and productive life and all that. But the sun's going to shift into there this weekend. So you'll probably find that while there's some reworking, you're also going to be gaining a lot of energy and a lot of prana by focusing on that productive stuff. But in either case, good trine to Jupiter supports that this first half as well. Now, the trine up to Mars does suggest that Mars recently going into your 12th, that there's a bit of a behind-the-scenes sort of way of getting things done at the moment. So it is good for you to get your rest, your relaxation, your alone time. It could help you recharge. And really, but mostly when it's about getting things done. You know, Mars is about our personal needs. It's about getting things done. And in the 12th house, it's about taking a more receptive approach to that. There's really nothing new to you Pisceans out there because this is your house, the 12th house. But using this time to be a bit receptive and find that current of life. And as you find that current of life, then of course we can get a lot done. We can pursue a lot of things and motivate ourselves and all that through that more laissez-faire, reflective, letting go sort of perspective. But the trine could be supporting the financial material stuff this week during the full moon. It's possible. And also the expansive side to life, which is Mars ruling your 9th. Philosophy, ideas, things like that. And of course, the sextile up to Uranus in your 1st house, still a great time to be mixing things up, being who you are. That's what Uranus has been helping you do. Might be some wounds with that because Chiron has recently entered Pisces, just with you about identity or about your goals and things like that. But know that it's all part of this healing work and it's all internal. So as you do the healing, as you do the acceptance, you are rejuvenating, you are becoming more refreshed. And it's a great full moon to do that. All right, so that's the week in a nutshell. Definitely the emphasis on the full moon being in your 3rd house. Really good time to do a status check about the mental and practical side of things and communication. What's the importance of that? How's that going? How's the learning? How's all this trading if you're involved with that or business? Some of you too, maybe getting in contact with your siblings or your peers. Really good time to do that and continue to put positive energy into that. There's a lot of support. As you really get into this mental, inquisitive, learning sort of energy, you're going to find it does support a lot of the other key areas. And then, of course, balancing that with the possibilities, because you've got Saturn really helping you ground these possibilities, make these possibilities real, tangible. And that's what the 3rd house is as well. All right, so Pisces, have a great one. Be sure to like, comment, and share before you go. And I want to let you all know that I am running a holiday and New Year special for 20% off readings. So if you'd like to have a look at 2017, looking at your personal chart, be sure to get in touch with that for that. Or if you know any friends or family who'd like a reading as well. All right, so have a great one, and I'll see you all next week.